Hello, everyone. In this video, we're going to show you how to submit a Maine individual income tax return, also known as a 1040-ME. Before we begin, these videos use example numbers for the purpose of demonstrating how the Maine Tax Portal, also known as the portal, works as a system and the basic mechanics of how to use the portal. The videos do not constitute tax advice. If you have a question about how to file your own taxes, how to file taxes for your business, or how to file the taxes you are preparing on behalf of an individual or entity, you should seek assistance from a tax professional. Now back to the content of this video. For this particular example, we are going to demonstrate filing an original return as a Maine resident. This is a non-logged in activity, so we'll begin on the Maine Tax Portal homepage. Here, various options are organized into categories using separate panels. We can navigate to the top left panel called Quick Links and click the File a Return or Form hyperlink, or we can navigate to the top right panel called Individuals and click the File an Individual Return hyperlink. You may click either, both will bring you to the same page. From here, we are going to review the left panel called Individual Returns and select one of the first three options. Each of these hyperlinks will bring us to the form specific to the tax year indicated. Only the current tax year and previous 2 tax years will be available to file on the portal. So we'll click the hyperlink for the year we'd like to file. And we're brought to the instructions page. We do encourage you to read through this page thoroughly before you begin. We'd like to draw your attention to the Save Draft button at the bottom of the screen. You may click this at any time to save your progress. You may click the Cancel button if you wish to stop and not save your progress. You can also click the Previous button to navigate back to a previous page, or click on a previous page name in the blue bar at the top. And we're going to click Next to proceed. Next is the Paid Preparer page. Since we are not a paid preparer, we're just going to click Next. And if you have a third-party designee, you may indicate that on this page. We're just going to continue on. Next is the Filing Information screen. I'd like to draw your attention to the red asterisk on some of the fields. This indicates that a field is required. You must fill it out to continue. Anywhere that you see a blue circled I, that means that you may click that for more information on what is being asked for. And you can just click out of that box to close it. So we'll fill out the required fields on this page, including our filing status, our residency status, and our total number of exemptions. For this example, we also have a dependent, so we'll enter in that information on the 4th line that asks about dependents. There are also a series of yes or no questions. The first one, which asks if we filed a 2022 federal individual income tax return, also known as a 1040 return. And that one is required. For the purposes of today's demonstration, we're going to say yes. And then the second question, did you itemize your deductions on your 2022 federal 1040? We're going to say no. But you will just answer these as applicable to you and your situation. Once you've answered everything applicable to you on the screen, we'll click Next to proceed. Next is the identification page. Again, required fields are indicated by red asterisks, so we'll go ahead and fill those out. Those include our social security number, twice for confirmation, and our first and last name. And our phone number. And our date of birth. For the purposes of this demonstration, we said that we are filing single. However, if you are filing married, filing joint, there will be a page after this one for you to enter in your spouse's information. And we'll click next to continue. The next screen is for our mailing address. As always, addresses must be verified by the United States Postal Service, which you can do by clicking the blue hyperlink at the bottom of your screen. And now that we've verified our address, we'll click next to continue. Here we are asked for W-2 information. We can add this by clicking the Add W-2 hyperlink. And then we will enter in the information as it appears on our W-2. Required fields are indicated by red asterisks. However, you may enter in additional information as it appears on your W-2. And depending on your screen size, you may need to scroll down to see additional fields in this window. Once we've filled out all of our W-2 information, we'll click Add. And we can see that that employer and W-2 have been added to the table on this page. If you need to edit an existing entry, you may click the pencil icon, or you may click the X to delete. You can also add another W-2 by repeating the same process that we just did. And the total Maine wages and Maine income tax withheld are auto-calculated for you below based on what you've entered in each W-2 that you've provided. Once we've verified that everything on this page looks correct, we'll click Next to proceed. If we had a 1099-R, we would click the Add 1099-R hyperlink and enter in our information in this window. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're just going to cancel and click Next to move on. Next is our Maine income tax withheld summary, where we can see an auto-calculated total of all of our withholding from each of the previous screens. If you have other tax documents that include Maine income tax withheld and you did not enter them on the Forms W-2 or Forms 1099-R pages, enter the total of that Maine withholding here. And we'll click Next to continue. On the federal adjusted gross income page, we'll enter that from our federal return and click Next to proceed. And on the Schedule 1A, we'll enter in our income addition modifications as applicable to us and our situation. As part of this demonstration, the Maine Public Employees Retirement System, or EMPERS contributions, were present on the W-2 that we added, so they have auto-filled on this screen for us. We have no more income addition modifications to add, so we'll click Next to continue. And next is the Schedule 1S, where we'll enter any income subtraction modifications applicable to us in our situation. For the purposes of this demonstration, we don't have any, but if we did, we'd add them here. And we'll click Next. On the next page, we reach our first milestone. Here we can see that our federal adjusted gross income and other information provided previously have led to an auto calculation of our tax. And we'll click next to continue on with our filing. On this screen, we can see a series of 4 questions related to various credits. Saying yes to these questions will direct us to fill out additional information on the following pages. Depending on your answers, your filing may have additional pages between this screen here and the Schedule A non-refundable credits page that we'll see next. We're just going to leave all of them as no for this demonstration and continue on. Next, we're brought to the Schedule A non-refundable credits. And because we claimed a dependent for this example, the dependent exemption tax credit has been already calculated for us and entered in on this schedule. If we had any other non-refundable credits we were claiming, we'd enter them now and click next to continue. Next is the Schedule A refundable credits, where again, if we had any that we were claiming, we'd enter them here and click next to proceed. On the next page, we reach our second milestone. Here we can see that our previously entered non-refundable tax credit has been applied against our total tax, and our net tax has been auto-calculated for us. If we had entered refundable credits previously, we would not see them here, but we would see them again soon. So we'll click next to proceed. And here we are asked if we would like to file for the property tax fairness credit and sales tax fairness credit, also known as PTFC and STFC. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to say yes. And click next. On this page, we are asked to enter in some income information, including our federal total income from our federal return. And we'll click next to continue. And on the screen, we are asked if we paid property tax or rent on our primary residence in the tax year for which we are filing. We're going to say yes for this demonstration and click next to continue. On the next screen, we are going to enter in our primary residence information. There are some instructions at the top of this screen. There's a lot of information there, so we do encourage that you read that thoroughly. And when you're ready, we're going to click Add Primary Residence. And we're going to fill out the required property details on this window. And we'll click Add. And we can see that that primary residence has been added to the table. Since we only had one primary residence during the tax year, we're going to click Next. And we can see that our property tax fairness credit and sales tax fairness credit have been calculated for us based on the information provided throughout the filing. And we'll click Next to proceed. We've now reached our third milestone. Here we can see our withholding reiterated back to us based on the information provided earlier. And if we had claimed any refundable credits, we would see those here. And then we can see our property tax fairness credit that was auto-calculated for us. If you know you have made any estimated payments, extension payments, or real estate withholding payments for the tax year for which you are filing, or if you know you had an overpayment on the prior tax year that you opted to have carried forward and applied against this tax year's liability, you should enter the amount on the applicable line. And we'll click Next to continue. Next is the Schedule CP. If we wanted to make any charitable contributions, we could do that here. Or if you are filing a current year tax return prior to the last week of July, you may also opt to purchase park passes here. We're not going to do either of these things today, so we're going to click Next to proceed. On our fourth milestone, we can see the results of our Schedule CP, in this case, 0, and input any use tax or sales tax on casual rentals that we have to report. And we'll click Next to continue. Next is the attachments page, where we can add any supporting documents to go with our return by clicking the Add Attachment hyperlink. We'll select the type of file that we are attaching. Browse for our file. And click OK. And as we can see, that attachment has been added. If you need to do so, if you've perhaps attached the wrong document, you may remove a file that's been added, or you may add additional attachments by repeating that process. And there is a list of suggested attachments on this screen. Once you've added all necessary attachments, you may click Next to continue. On the balance screen, your overpayment or amount due are calculated for you based on the information you've entered during the filing. For the purpose of this demonstration, we have an amount due, and we are asked if we'd like to make a payment now. We're going to say yes. And click Next to proceed. On the payment screen, we'll enter in our payment method information, including our routing number, account number, and account number again to confirm. We'll indicate whether the account is checking or savings. And we'll confirm the payment date and amount. The payment date does default to today's date, and the amount is going to default to the total, but you may select a different amount if you so choose. Either way, you'll be asked to confirm that amount. And we'll click Next to proceed. Next, we're brought to the summary page. We'll review this information and make sure that everything looks correct. And click Next to continue on. On the declaration page, we'll check the box indicating that our return is true, correct, and complete, and enter in the first and last name of the person filing this return. And again to confirm. And then we'll click Submit. We are asked to provide our email address twice to confirm. This will allow us to search the submission later on. And then we'll check the box that says, I'm not a robot. And once we're done with that, we'll click OK. And we're brought to the confirmation screen. Here, the email used is reiterated back to you along with your confirmation code. As always, we encourage you to make note of this information for your records. And that concludes our demonstration of how to submit a resident Maine individual income tax return. Thank you all for watching.